Joining me is General Jack Keane, a retired four-star general who served as the Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He's now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Keane, thank you so much for joining us. General, I've been frustrated, I know you've been frustrated at the projection of weakness militarily under the Biden administration. Now, on Monday, 7 American military personnel injured in a suspected rocket attack at a US base in Iraq. In the last 9 months, there have been more than 170 attacks on US military bases and assets in Syria, in Iraq, in Jordan, and almost no American response. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I think you pointed out right at the beginning, it's absolutely an inability of the Biden administration to want to confront their adversaries because they actually fear that there may be some escalation. They don't see, by confronting their adversaries, they may indeed shut them down. In over 200 attacks on American forces in Iraq and Syria have taken place since the Biden administration came into power in January of 21. And actually, several months ago, they were able to shut down those attacks when they killed a Iranian-backed militia leader in Iraq. And the Iranians, having seen that, told the militias, both Iraqi-backed and Syria, to shut down their activities. Now their activities have started again, I think largely because of the success that Israel is enjoying in killing Hamas top political and military leaders, as well as Hezbollah military leaders, and Iran has energized them again. The problem we have had from the outset with the Biden administration, Andrew, in dealing with the Iranian-backed Iraqi and Shia militias, the Houthis themselves, and the Hezbollah, is that this administration is unwilling to confront Iran directly. Most of us who observe this, to include the United States military commander in Central Command who oversees the Middle East, he has made continuous recommendations to the Biden administration to permit him to attack Iranian military assets that Iran owns that are operating in the Red Sea to help target the Houthis on the merchant ships and also U.S. and other naval ships that are protecting them, to target Iranian assets in Iran to prevent the continuous attacks on U.S. forces, as you just pointed out. This has been a prevailing problem from the outset. The Biden administration takes a hands-off approach when it comes to Iran out of fear of escalation. And guess what is happening? Iran continues to escalate.
Can you just take us to Ukraine? Early this year, I was worried. I mean, the newspaper headlines were all Russia offensive in Ukraine. They're taking territory. Admittedly, it was very small bits, incremental, at a huge loss, but they were advancing. Now, an astonishing development, reports that Ukrainian forces have gone into Russia. They're 15 kilometres, not much I know, but still 15 kilometres into Russia in the Kursk region. What is going on?
Well, the fact of the matter is that this war has been protracted largely by the fact that the Biden administration has handcuffed the Ukrainians in not delivering them the weapon systems and the munitions they needed when they needed it and in the quantity that they needed it. The Europeans made up their minds last year that the Russian threat of escalating to the use of nuclear weapons is a hollow threat. But the Biden administration still takes a knee to that threat, and it's still prohibiting, they're holding back, it's prohibiting, permitting the Ukrainians to use all of the weapons we've given them to attack into Russia. And secondly, not giving them the amount of weapons when they need them. The Ukrainians are enormously frustrated by this, and we at the Institute for the Study of War are in almost a daily contact with what is happening. Despite the challenges of getting equipment to them this year, largely because of the political debate that took place in America, The Ukrainians are still holding their own. They have killed tens of thousands of Russians in their offensive operations, and they are moving now to some, at least, tactical advantage in operations dealing with Russia itself. I'm absolutely convinced that what's driving the Biden administration, Andrew, from the very outset, they don't say it publicly, but having dealt with their policy leaders now for almost 3 years, I have come to the conclusion that from the outset, they've always wanted to go to negotiations as quickly as possible. Give the Ukrainians enough to help themselves and defend themselves, and let's get to negotiations and stop the war. And what does that really mean? That means Russia owns a certain percentage, 20, 25, maybe 30% of Ukraine. And the people are not liberated. They're living in occupied territory, something that Zelensky and his leaders, cannot tolerate. But that's where the Biden administration is. And look at it. Aren't they doing the same thing to Prime Minister Netanyahu in the Middle East, putting that same kind of pressure on him? They really want a permanent ceasefire, end the war now. What does that mean? That means thousands of Hamas fighters are still in Gaza. That means they survive. That means they declare victory. That means they reattack at a time and place of their choosing.
Look, we need a paradigm shift, obviously, in thinking here. Otherwise, the enemies of democracies are going to triumph. Jack Keane, thank you so much for your time, General Keane.
Yeah, great talking to you, Andrew. As always, thank you.